So this video will show you how to use Google Classroom to set assignments for your students, communicate with them, and a few other tips and tricks. So first of all, to get to Google Classroom, you could go to the waffle, or you could type in classroom.google.com, and this will take you to the Classroom home screen. And by the way, if you use some of these websites regularly, you can save them to your bookmarks kind of shelf by going over to this star, and when you click that, you can see that now it's added Google Classroom there, but you don't actually have to have any text. If you delete that and click done, it just saves the icon and allows you to fit more of those in. So that can be quite useful. Anyway, here is my Google Classroom for my trainer account. And to create a new class, you go over to the plus in the top right corner. And if the first time you log in to Google Classroom, it will ask if you're a teacher or a student. And if you make sure you say teacher, that allows you to create your own class. So I'm going to create a class, call it my new class, and it will create that. And you can have as many classes as you like. If you're a teacher, you can join other classes as if you were a student as well. And they can work quite well as like a kind of staff room, as a staff room classroom where you can share resources and ideas with staff only. But when you first get into your Google Classroom, it looks a bit like this, and you can change the theme and customize it however you like, and add a picture if you'd prefer. But there's a few different kind of tabs at the top. So this is known as a stream, and it's kind of where you can share informal sort of comments. So I might ask my class, how are you feeling today? And when I post that, when my students join the class, they will see that in the stream. And whenever you post an assignment, it comes up here, and it's all in chronological order. So it's useful for some things, but really Classwork is more useful for organizing and creating assignments. So by the way, if you don't want students to comment or have the ability to comment, you can turn that off in the settings. I think further down there are there's a setting somewhere that allows students can post and comment. So you can change it so that only teachers can post and comment, or maybe students can only comment. So you do have control over that if you'd prefer. So first of all, how can I add my students to this class? Well, if you go to the People tab, you can see that I've been added as a teacher, and you can add other teachers or support staff so that they can view the students' work when they complete it. And you can, there's three ways you can add a student. You could either add them directly. So I might add in user 1 and invite them. And that means that they would then, when they go into Google Classroom, it will appear that they've been invited to my new class. You can send them a link. So I think in here, you could copy that link and email it, or however you communicate with students, you could get them to click that and they'll join your class. Or usually the easiest way to do it is on the kind of home screen bit, you can just click this button to display your class code. And then when anyone else goes into Google Classroom, if they click the plus button, they just have to type in these characters and they'll join your class. And I'm going to change this. You can stop people from joining, or you can reset the code. You can turn it off or reset so that it changes the class code. Just in case anyone wants to join my new class afterwards. So now I've added user 1. I want to create an assignment for them. So I want them to complete a piece of work. So what I'm going to do in Classwork, this is where you can create assignments, and there's a few different ways you can do that, but I'm going to focus on the most simple one, just create an assignment. And this is how I use Google Classroom 95% of the time. Reuse post is actually very useful, and I'll talk about that later. But to create an assignment, first of all, I'm going to actually create the worksheet that I want them to do. Actually, no, I'm going to create the assignment first, and I'm going to call it About You. And I might write some instructions like, tell me about yourself, if I can spell it. And I'm going to add in from Google Drive the document that I made in one of the previous videos, all about me. So I want them to see some information about me, but I don't want them to be able to change that. I want it to be like a read-only file that they can look at. They can find out that I like Ronaldinho. So by default, it's set to students can view the file. So any students in my class, when they go onto this assignment, they'll be able to open that, but they'll only be able to look at it and view it and click the links, but they won't be able to change it or comment or anything else. Another option, if I wanted to, I could say students can edit the file, but that means that all of the students in my class would be able to add this document, a bit like if I put one sheet of paper in the middle of the class and they all could draw on it. In some situations that's useful, but for now it's not. And I'm going to talk about this last setting in a moment. So I want to allow students to view about me or about their new teacher. But now I want to create a worksheet that they can complete. So I'm going to open a new tab and go to doc.new, and I'm going to create a really simple worksheet where it just says name, maybe what did you do in the summer? Show me an interesting picture. And I'll just leave a few spaces so that they can fill that in, and I'll give it a title like maybe about my new class. And obviously you might come up with more elaborate worksheets than this, but this is just an example. Now once I've done that, that's automatically saved in my Drive. So I could move it and put it into a particular folder somewhere, or a shared drive. But for now, I'm just going to go back to my assignment, and then I'm going to add another file. And because I just made it, it will be the most recent thing. So it should be right here, about my new class. And I can click that to just double check that it is the same document that I just created. Yeah, it is. Great. But this time I want to make a copy for each student. And this is one of my favorite buttons in the whole of Google, because this, when you click this, what it's doing is going to essentially photocopy this for as many students as you have in your class. So you no longer have to go to the photocopier and fight over who's jammed it and who's run out of ink and who's left it halfway through. And yeah, it's just a really useful button. And before they invented Google Classroom, you can imagine if you wanted to create a worksheet and share it with your class, you'd have to share it with every single member of your class, and then you'd have to get them to make a copy of it. Then they would have to share it back to you for you to find it. But now this does that all for you. So now my assignment is ready. There's a few other options that you can do over here on the right. So if you wanted to, you could send it to more than one class. So I could send it to some of the other classes I teach in. You could, because I don't have any students, because user one's not accepted yet, but this is where it will have a list of all your students. So you could just check some of these boxes so that it would, so if you want to differentiate your work, you could have like an easier worksheet for some students and a harder one for others. You can set points. I often just leave it unmarked. I think this works really well in secondary school, but I don't find much use in primary, but you might do. I don't use due dates. Sometimes topics are good if you have lots of assignments to keep them organized. So I might create a topic in, I don't know, general. But you might have maths and English and reading and other things. And when I'm ready, I can click assign. Now, there are a couple of other things you can do. So you can schedule it. So maybe I want this to go live tomorrow morning. I don't want them to do the work before I've set it, or do it at home. And that's happened to me before, where students come in and they've already done the work because you set it the day before. You can just save it as a draft, but I'm just going to go ahead and assign this. So now it will appear under Classwork and it will appear in the stream. So in Classwork under General, because I created a topic called General, if I click onto the task, this is what it looks like. It's got the instructions, tell me about yourself, all about me. When they click that, that will be the read-only one, and then here's the document that they can change. And it's also gone into the stream. So now I'm going to switch over, and this is an incognito window, and so that means I've logged in as someone else, as user one, so I can show you what it looks like from a student point of view. So I'm going to use my new shortcut. That's clever, it's done it straight away. And yeah, so like I was saying earlier, the first time you go to Google Classroom, it will ask you if you are a teacher or a student. So it basically, if you're an adult, just put teacher. Even if you're in training and you're acting like a student, it just gives you more options. And as you can see, it says here, my new class, I've been invited by Luke Craig. So I'm going to click join. And then in the background, it's doing a few things like creating a calendar and a folder for you in the Classroom drive and things that you don't have to worry about, but it's doing clever stuff in the background. And then as you can see, it looks very similar to the teacher version, but there's a few things that you can't see on here. So the students can see the comment and they might reply and they might say, I am feeling good, and then send that. And other students can comment and reply to the stream as well. And then they can go to the assignment, either from the stream or in Classwork. And when they click that, here, well, this is now showing me the file that I made, I understand. And dismiss. That's interesting, it shows you comments. Oh, is that because I shared it with user 1 yesterday? Yeah, so I've got editor access. Maybe I should have shared it with a different user. But anyway, the point is this should be read-only. But I'm not going to record this video again. Just imagine that this is read-only. Then if I go into the assignment again, here it's got user 1. This is the work that I'm going to complete. Okay, got it. So here's my work up here. So when I click that, this is the copy of the worksheet, but you can see it's put my name at the front, user 1. So this is a new document now. So only I have access to this and the teacher, but none of the other students in the class can see it or do anything with it. So I could put my name in here. My name's user. What did you do in the summer? Swimming. Show me an interesting picture. Maybe I'll add a picture straight from here of a cat. Let's hope it's appropriate. Yeah. That's a weird cat. And then well, you can turn it in, but you don't need to. It doesn't really matter. As a teacher, you can still see what students are doing or what they've done. Some schools like to turn it in to kind of keep a track of who says they've done it, but you don't need to. Then back in the teacher version, if I go into Classwork now, I can see that my assignment, it says it's 1 assigned because there's 1 person in my class. So under students, I've got user 1. So if I go to Classwork, I can now click on assigned to see the piece of work that my student has done. And normally there'd be lots of students here and you could click through them. So why can't I click work? Let's try refreshing. There it is. So now when I click it, it shows me exactly what my student user has done. And you may notice it's got this kind of frame around it, which is really another really useful addition. And one of the reasons it's useful is you can use this to check all of the students in your class work. So if you had lots of students, you could jump from one student straight to a particular student here. There'd normally be a long list of their names, or you can use this kind of arrow to toggle through them. But obviously at the moment, I've only got 1 user. So I can look at the piece of work that they've done, and I can add comments. So I might highlight the swimming and add a comment by clicking here, add comment, and say, ooh, I like swimming too. And click comment. But there's a few other cool things you can do. So by default, when you click onto it with this kind of classroom frame, it leaves it on suggesting mode. So that means if there was an error, if there's no errors, maybe I should add here user 1. It's almost like track changes in Word. So when I add anything, or if I think, oh, you should have left a space underneath, it will make a suggestion so that when the student next goes into their work, they can see what I've changed about it and they can accept or reject. So that might be useful, or you might rather just edit the work directly. So you can change it to edit and you can just start deleting things or adding things. And another useful thing, you can add private comments that only that child can see. So this comment is on the document, so anyone with access to this document would see it. But here you can actually add what's called comments to your comment bank. So if you find yourself often writing the same comments, for example, this sentence does not make sense, please reread. That is a sentence I find myself writing many times. You can add it and then it comes up here and you can just copy it and paste it in. Or even better, you could highlight a sentence that they might have written, go to add a comment, and if you use the hashtag and then you start typing your sentence, it has like all of your comment bank sentences here. So I can click that. This sentence does not make sense, please reread. And then when the student, so if I go back to the student account, as you can see now, get rid of the cats, it's come up with some suggestions and it said, oh look, you could add a paragraph here. I like swimming too. You can say, yeah, I've read that, tick. This sentence does not make sense, please reread. Oh, and then they can change that. So that's how you can create a worksheet for your students, and it's really simple and easy, and it makes a teacher's life so much better. And I'm just going to show you one more way that you can create an assignment. Sometimes a Google Doc isn't the most appropriate. So imagine if I was doing a maths worksheet. Now I'm just going to search, and only search under tools. In images. If I go to tools, I only want large pictures. Tools in image search is really useful. You can also search for transparent. That means they don't have a background. So if you're doing a presentation and you don't want the white bit or whatever the background is. Anyway, I'm going to look for a worksheet that has things that maybe I'd need to circle, or so maybe something like this, that I couldn't really set this as a Google Doc because I don't want them to type the answer. And what I'm going to use is I'm just going to screenshot some of these. So I'm going to, on a Mac, it's Command Shift and 4. And this goes to my clipboard. Oh. So I'm going to do it bit by bit. And then in a new tab, I'm going to go to jam.new as a new shortcut to get a brand new Jamboard. And this is kind of like a whiteboard software, but it's all on the cloud and it's brilliant for just creating worksheets really easily. So I'm just going to paste that bit in and make it a bit bigger. And when the students get this, again, they're going to be able to use the pen and they could maybe circle which one they think is going to come next. Or sometimes you've got to draw, mix and match, or you can add text if you want, or you can add some shapes or pictures. So Jamboards are really useful for making worksheets, and you can add as many pages as you like. But once you've done that, maybe I'll call this maths worksheet. Then I can go back to Google Classroom and I can create a new assignment and I'll call it maths. And I'll add in, again, from Google Drive, if I go to recent, I know it will be the last thing that's here. So this is the Jamboard. And again, I want every student to have their own copy of this. So I'm going to make a copy for each student. I'm just going to double check that that's the right thing. If I click in it, maybe I should rub out delete these things so that they don't have the squiggles on. But actually, no student is really going to do this. So I should stop bothering. But when I've done that, then I can assign it, and that will post again for all my students. It will make a copy of that Jamboard for each individual student, and then from a student account, they would just have to go to the classroom. Then now it's It might need refreshing. Sometimes this pops up and says stream was updated, so they can show. Or they just go to Classwork, and now there's a new task called Maths. And when they click that, it opens the Jamboard that they can draw on however they like. Maybe I'll do it in green. And yeah, once again, as soon as they've done that, the teacher can view it, look at their assigned, and they can see what that child has done and give feedback. Maybe you need to open it. So yeah, so that's really useful, and I hope that you'll find it useful at your school. So yeah, again, there are some tasks for you to try, and good luck with using Google Classroom and Jamboard.